Hello, everyone, and welcome to another round of PDN Live. I'm your moderator, Shannon, and tonight our topic is self-defense with the blade. I have Rob Pincus, as always, and Alessandro Padovani of Safer, Faster Defense. And for those of you that are listening in live, if you have any questions on this topic, type it in the comments below, and we will do our best to answer them. And also stick around after the show, and Rob and Alessandro will stay on to answer questions in the comments section. So Rob, what have you been up to? You've had some big life events. Tell us about the PDN tour.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another round of PDN Live. I'm your moderator, Shannon.
That's it. Big life events, learning how to use a computer. So, yeah, the reason we actually did not do, as most people probably know, the live event on June 22nd is because on June 22nd my daughter Cynthia Louise Grace Pincus was born. So that's been exciting. Of course, we knew that was coming. We just didn't know it was coming on that day. So we apologize to everybody who wanted to tune into this in June. And Alessandro was actually teaching on the range that day, and I think it kind of worked out as well as it could have that we were able to get together now here at the end of July and do that. The baby is happy and healthy, and Personal Defense Network training tour has concluded within the last, just I guess about 6 days ago. We ended with the Shooting Industry Masters event. So I made a quick run down from Seattle area up in Washington after the last formal class and made a run to the Shooting Industry Masters. It's a great event. We had a combined ICE, PDN network, Personal Defense Network team shoot there. We had a lot of our contributors there, and of course a lot of industry friends. It's a great event, and had a good time down there. And I've gotten back to the Western HQ in Denver, and getting ready for an instructor development course that starts in about 10 days. We have a big combat-focused shooting instructor development course here. And I guess the other big news is that literally I had to check because for the most of the last 15 hours we've had a big banner on the personaldefensenetwork.com page that said under upgrade maintenance. And depending on how you got there, it either said upgrade or maintenance. But the fact is that that upgrade and maintenance is done. I've been incredibly excited about this. It was something that, originally, if you'd asked me back in January, I thought it was maybe going to happen in May. At NRA show, I would have told you June. Today, on July 30th, I will tell you it was totally worth waiting for. The tech team put an incredible amount of work into it, and what people are going to see right away is a much cleaner presentation, much more easily navigable site, easier to search, easier to find topics you're interested in, especially for our premium members. When you log in, you're going to be shown the most recent featured things in the areas that you're interested in, those topics that you're interested in to check out. And people visiting the site, people searching on Google for this kind of generic self-defense, personal defense information, it's going to be easier for them to find information. And this new platform opens up a whole bunch of functionality that we haven't had in the past. Things like instantly updated blogs for myself and some of the other contributors, as well as some distance education things that are becoming online pretty quick now that the major platform migration has happened. So, when we started PDN in 2010, there was about 100 videos that we had that we trickled out over the first 6 months or so, posted maybe half of that right away at launch. And the platform we had then was appropriate for something that size. Now we have hundreds and hundreds of free videos and articles and another huge collection of premium content, and the platform had to grow so that it was easier to find what you're looking for. So if you've never seen Personal Defense Network, great, you're coming in at the right time, and if you have been watching it for the last several, 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to be really pleased with the new look and feel of the site. So everybody, when you're done watching us tonight, go check that out.
Awesome. And then with the conclusion of your tour, can you tell us about the contest that we're running right now for our live viewers?
Yeah, so for the live viewers and those who are tuning in very quickly after we post this, up until midnight tonight, July 30th, and I'm going to assume Central Time since that's where PDN HQ is, up until midnight Central Time, you can guess how many states the tour truck was in during the span of the 2015 tour. So from late March when we kicked off in Florida, all the way through the tour up into New England, across the country to Seattle, to the Pacific Northwest, and then back to the Shooting Industry Masters, which was held in Kansas, how many states did the tour truck actually have its tires present in? And if you guess that by midnight tonight, you'll be entered to win a membership with PDN, a premium membership, of course. So that's kind of cool. It's fun. It's a way for us to brag about all the places that we got to go this year. And remember, that number is actually just a little bit less than the total number of states that there were courses in. Because I know there were at least 3 or 4 states that I didn't set foot in, or set tire in this case, that we had instructors teaching. So that's a bonus. With a certain number of places we taught, and then how many places did I actually drive through.
Awesome, and they can do that on Facebook.
Yes, the Personal Defense Network Facebook page. They'll see it in all our social media, but the only place to register an official guest is the PDN Facebook page.
Awesome. And speaking of our Facebook page, you can also find Personal Defense Network on Twitter. Our handle is P_D_N. On Instagram, @PD Network. And hey, if you have any comments for us, just send it to our email, social@personaldefensenetwork.com. And like I mentioned before, if you're interested in getting our Personal Defense Network newsletter, it's free, and click the link down below. So our guest tonight, Alessandro Padovani of Safer, Faster Defense. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you on here for the topic of self-defense and the blade. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you and Rob came to know each other and how you got involved with the Personal Defense Network.
All right. Well, first thing, thank you for having me, guys. You know, I'm really honored to be here, and I'm actually looking forward to go and look at the website once this is over, because it sounds pretty damn good. Anyhow, I met Rob in around 2010. We were like on emailing and calling before that. At the time, I was back in Italy, where I was teaching at a shooting range. I was teaching combatives, and I became a firearms instructor there. But you know, I wasn't really happy with the curriculum that we were teaching. It was more of the operator-style shooting that we were teaching to civilians, which didn't make much sense to me. So I got really interested in Rob research and the books and everything, and so we kept in touch. And first thing I did when I came back to the States was to go to a combat focus shooting instructor development course and get my certification, and then I started teaching the firearms here in the States as well, and I've been working pretty closely with Rob and all the leadership team at ICE and CFS. It's one of the things that really attracted me to combat focus shooting was the way that it prepares you for the worst possible case scenario, the way that it prepares you for the ambush, for the aggression that you don't see coming, right? And that kind of inspired me to build my knife program around the same principle and concept. I'm also spear and personal defense readiness certified coach, and both systems, the personal defense readiness and CFS, really put a lot of emphasis on integrating the body's natural reactions into our training and to keep our tactics and strategies very simple and intuitive. So that was something that I've seen, missing in the martial arts realm, in the knife training realm, and so I really endeavored to, distill some of the concept and principle and integrate them with the knife skills that I learned through martial arts to come up with a program that it's easy to learn and it's easy to retain.
Great. And if people want to find you and contact you after the show, where can they find you on the social media networks?
All right. They can email me at Ale at saferfasterdefense.com. My website is Safer Faster Defense. I'm on Facebook as Safer Faster Defense, and also Alessandro Padovani. And that's pretty much, well, I'm on Instagram as well as Safer Faster Defense, and that's pretty much my social media imprint for now.
Great. Well, for those of you that are just joining us, this is PDN Live. The topic tonight is self-defense with the blade. If you have any questions during the live show, go ahead and type them below. We'll do our best to get around to them, but let's jump right in. So, Ali, we've had a lot of people ask the same question. What is your preference, fixed blades or folders for self-defense?
Oh, well, without a doubt, the fixed blades are actually a lot more efficient because they're much easier to draw and present, right? They call for a lot less fine motor skills to deploy. Now, the problem is that in most states, fixed blades are not legal to conceal, right? So the same reason why I don't really go for open carry with my firearm, I try not to go with open carry with my blades, right? So unfortunately, when the law dictates that you cannot conceal a fixed blade, then I need to compromise and go for a folder. Now, For instance, I know where I'm from, well, where I'm living, it's in California. You can carry folders as long as it's visible. So the little clip in the pocket that makes it non-concealed, so it's legal to carry. And you can't do anything different without risking, getting in trouble with the law. So if you live in a state that allows for concealed carry of fixed blade, by all means, the fixed blade is the way to go. If not, you need to compromise to a folder, and you need to practice your draw, because that becomes the most important skills to master.
And what do you think of curved blades?
Curved blades? Well, I think that basically, as long as you keep it sharp, and well functioning, any blade can do a lot of damage. I don't necessarily favor curved blade just because of my style of training. And if you're talking about a blade with a belly in it, that's all right. It may have a little cutting power in certain motion and a certain trajectory. But if you're talking about karambit, as really the really sharp blade, I think that what you gain in cutting power, you kind of lose in stabbing power, and I'm kind of heavily favor the stabbing with a knife rather than the slashing. So I prefer straight blades or blades that have a belly, but they're not curved in an exaggerated manner.
And which kind of blade is better, or blade edge is better for self-defense, plain or semi-serrated?
Well, frankly, I think, again, if you keep them sharp, any edge can do a lot of damage. Now, there is a lot of talk on the net about, the serrated edge can catch into bone and can catch into stuff because, the teeth may be a little bit more pronounced. And, frankly, I can't really speak to that from personal experience. I know that because I carry a knife or two on me every day, I use them a lot more often for everyday chores, right? And I find that the straight edge works best for that kind of stuff. So it's an everyday carry. So I'm hopefully never going to use it to defend myself. But if I need to, a sharp straight edge works as well as a serrated edge. And for everyday chores, the straight edge I think works best, at least for me.
Mm-hmm. So Rob, David asks, for women or wives, what is the best defense other than personal awareness and pepper spray?
Oh, well, maybe he hopes we're going to say blades, because this is the blade night. Other than, I think the best possible defense people can have, as a fundamental level, is going to be unarmed skills, right? Because that's the thing you always have with you. So he mentioned awareness, and we will throw mindset into that, preparation and all that. But once you set your mind in motion to be capable of defending yourself, or be prepared to defend yourself, I should say, one of the most fundamental capabilities is going to be unarmed skills, because you're always going to have that. And if the reading between the lines, the insinuation of the question is that women don't want to carry guns, which of course we don't always find to be true, then I don't know that doing anything outside of really dedicating yourself to unarmed skills is going to start to change that mindset, to understand that once you've decided you're going to defend yourself, there's not a bad, evil talisman. The gun's not inherently wrong or bad. And there's not a magic talisman that's always going to work, like a pepper spray can or taser or a knife. The nice thing about unarmed skills is they really translate, right? They ensure that you have fitness, they ensure that you have some flexibility, they ensure that you have some athleticism, some motion, some ability to generate power. They allow you to fight to any tools that you might need to use. They allow you to defend yourself when those tools aren't around. And I think Alessandro already referenced this idea that the interaction between your unarmed skills and your knife fighting skills is huge. And I'll probably let Alessandro take it from there, because I know he has based a lot of the, let's say, technique that he teaches on the same kinds of things we would do if we didn't have a knife in our hand.
Yeah, indeed. I think that your first level is the empty hand, no matter what. Even with pepper spray, you may need to fight to get to your pepper spray, right? So remember, we're trying to really be prepared for the worst possible scenario, so that anything easier than that is going to be easier to address. So empty hand skills are the base of everything. Like in my knife class, we spend a nice portion of time working on empty hand skills, because people have this almost mystical view of the knife, right? And if you look at YouTube, most knife training, videos and so on, you have two guys with knives going at each other, right? Now we know from statistical evidence and from all the videos of actual knife aggression on YouTube that that's very seldom the case, right? So the premise is I am recognizing that this guy is attacking me with a knife, whether I'm in fight already or whether he's approaching me. I'm still going to be able to fend him off to get to my blade. And especially if it's a folder, I need to fend him off and control it enough to be able to draw my knife without losing it, without throwing it. And so before everything else, I think a solid understanding of very simple, very intuitive hand-to-hand skills is extremely important.
So switching gears here, let's talk about knife grips and how it relates to defense. Ale, what provides a good grip?
Well, the knife, again, the knife is a tool, right? So like any other tool, when you go and select a hammer, a screwdriver, a drill, whatever the most important part is ergonomics, right? Because you're going to use it. It needs to fit your hand in a very secure manner. Once we start fighting with a knife, we are hitting things at a high rate of speed. So we subject the knife to a lot of stress. And our grip needs to be extremely secure in order to be able to maintain the knife in our hands and do all the damage that we can do with it. So, there is different styles, if anybody has a little bit of understanding about knife, you got your hammer grip, which is exactly like you would hold the hammer, right? So if you have if you have a knife and you hold it like a hammer, this is like a very strong grip, right? And you can punch with it and just let the blade do what it can do. We got the Filipino grip or fencer grip, which is the same thing except that the thumb goes on the spine, right? And I find this to be actually the most dexterous kind of grip. It allows for the most dexterity in stabbing and slashing, and you still maintain the knife securely in your hand, given that the knife fits your hand to begin with. And then you got your reverse grip, right? And reverse grip is really secure as well because you also cap it with the thumb. So this is really strong, and I think that any of these three grips are gonna serve you well as long as you find out which one works best for you and you train with that, right? I'm really not a proponent of trying, and train with 17 different grips so that you can be good at it anytime, any which way you grab the knife. You should have the knife staged in the same spot on your body, whether it is pocket or inside the waistband. You should always access it in the same way and grip it in the same way, so that that consistency is going to allow you to be able to perform those skills under a lot of stress.
So from my understanding, the reverse grip gives you more ways for your grab or your opponent. Is that correct?
You kind of broke off a little. Could you repeat the question, please?
Of course. From my understanding, reverse grip gives you more ways to control grab or your opponent. Is this correct?
Yeah, you can definitely use the reverse grip to hook. Whether it is an arm, a forearm, or to hook behind the head of the bad guy. So it may give you a little bit more of control. You are losing a little bit of dexterity, and you're losing a little bit of reach with it. But it's a very strong grip, and again, if you favor it, by all means, once you train with it, you can become as proficient as with any other grip, and it gives you some advantages as well as a couple of disadvantages that can be very minimal, if you will.
And Rob, do you have anything to add to grips and preference on what you do and how you teach them?
No, teaching the blade really isn't anything that I've gotten into. I've been much more a student of a lot of different guys. Mike Janich, obviously, he and I worked together for a long time, learning what he was doing. Alessandro's take on it, which again kind of builds off of a lot of the underlying principles and concepts that I believe in anyway. Several other guys along the way. And what I've learned that works best for me is to have some of that versatility in terms of, because I'm not a blade guy, because I generally carry a knife as a utility tool more than a defensive tool, I'm going to have to improvise what I'm doing. And that's why basing it on the unarmed skills, kind of going back to that, basing it on the same types of, you know, hand motions and arm motions and strikes that I would do with an empty hand, or that I might be doing with an elbow, and now turning that into something where I'll employ a knife. And again, whether I'm stabbing or I'm slashing, or I have the knife in a reverse grip, or I have the knife in more of a fencer grip, I haven't, let's say, dedicated enough time to be overly specialized in one or the other. So in the case where someone like myself relies on a firearm primarily, Alessandro, you know, I've never really asked you this question. What's your take on the best way to look at the knife when it's going to be a secondary option, not a primary option, you know, or maybe a tertiary option in terms of personal defense?
Mm-hmm. Well, that is actually a really good point, because most people that carry for self-defense, you know, they carry a concealed weapon, they're gonna carry, train, and rely on their handgun before anything else, right? Notwithstanding that, even with a gun, you know, your hand-to-hand skills are your basis, because we know that, you know, when you're taken by surprise, you may be fighting to get to your gun, or you may be fighting to keep the gun in your hands, right? Somebody may grab it, whether in the holster or whether when you're at a station. So in that case, I strongly suggest for people, CCW carry and law enforcement as well, to carry their secondary, so the knife, on the offside, right? So that if you're fighting to maintain control of your weapon on your strong side, you can easily access the knife on the weak side, deploy it, and actually use that to multiply your chances of getting the bad guy off of your gun, right? And again, it's something that is not easy, because, you know, you want to train with your weak hand. You know, you want to train with your you know, hand that has the least amount of dexterity. So at first, you're gonna feel a little bit dumb, right? But it's a matter. It becomes a matter of you know, preparing for the fight that you may find yourself in. And if at first you feel a little dumb and uncoordinated, if you keep training, you're gonna become coordinated enough to do a lot of damage in a very short time on a bad guy that's trying to get your gun away from you.
Gotcha. For those of you that are joining us now, this is PDN Live. Topic tonight is self-defense with the blade. We have Rob Pincus, our Executive Director for Personal Defense Network, and our special guest tonight, Alessandro Padovani of Safer, Faster Defense. If you're listening to us live or watching us live and you have a question, go ahead and type it in the comment section below, and we'll do our best to get around to it tonight. You can find us on Facebook at Personal Defense Network, on Twitter at P_D_N, on Instagram at PDN Network, or PD Network. Also, stick around after the show. Rob and Ali will stay on to answer questions in the comment section. So, Ali, Krav Maga has become a bit of a buzz phrase lately. For people watching who might not know about it, can you explain what this technique is and why it's used?
Well, Krav Maga is not a technique; it's a system. So I think that, you know, Krav Maga has become like the CrossFit of self-defense, if you will. Like it has exploded. Some of the schools are really good, and, you know, they teach some very practical skills. Some of the schools are probably less good, because unfortunately, when something takes over, if you will, the quality control on these or the instructors is, you know, it is very limited. You know, it kind of fails, and so it's the same thing like for CrossFit, if you will. When, you know, you pay a little amount of money and you get certified, you can open your box, but you don't have really any experience teaching it, right? And you may not have any concept of what people need. So unfortunately, the same has happened for Krav Maga. So I really suggest people go, if they're interested, go to the Krav Maga schools in their area and audit them, right? See what they're doing, see if it's kind of like a fit box thing where you're striking a lot of stuff, but you're not really doing any force on force, or whether, if, you know, people are actually talking a lot of sense, they deal with, you know, fear management as well as simple tactics, because, you know, in my experience, it becomes, you know, the quality of the instructor is going to dictate whether the Krav Maga that he teaches or that she teaches is actually a, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Adaptable to self-defense rather than becoming another martial arts with different buzzwords.
Rob, can you explain self-defense using a blade against multiple attackers?
Not as well as Alessandro can. I'm really just here to be here this night. Literally, we have a whole DVD at Personal Defense Network that we produced with Alessandro on that very topic. So rather than regurgitate his words, I will merely say blah, blah, blah. What do you think, Alessandro?
Well, I agree with you, Rob. You hit some really interesting points there. But so obviously, multiple assailant. It's a very bad situation to find yourself in. So the system that I teach, the Saber Faster Knife, with multiple assailants, the context is more complex because it's actually a harder program to solve. You have multiple people that can actually do you harm. So the good thing is that we don't teach, air quote, advanced tactics for multiple assailants because that would be pretty silly. We want to apply the same fundamental tactics and strategies that we train to this context. So the main thing, the most important thing to understand is that, for one thing, you're gonna have a much higher fear response. So your body natural reaction are gonna be even more amplified. So you need to be understanding that and understand how to use that to your advantage. Secondarily, the main idea of our multiple assailant defense is you want to try to split and stack the assailants. What I mean is, if you have 3 or 4 people in front of you in a line, or even worse, if they're surrounding you, now either one of those people can attack you, and then everybody else is going to pile on. So it's up to you to use your verbal skills, your body language, to try to angle and move in a way that puts the bad guys one in front of the other, so that when the attack happens, they're not going to have free range and you have 4 people pummeling you, but you're going to have one person and the next person has this guy in front of me, so he can't reach you as well, and so on and so forth. Then obviously this alone is not going to keep you safe. This is going to only delay your demise if you don't have skills to apply. And the thing is, you really need to have made the decision of being able to, giving yourself consent to hurt people with a blade before this stuff happens. Because once it happens with multiple assailant, you really need to go hard and fast and try to do the most amount of damage in the shortest amount of time. That's also why your empty hand skills are important, because you cannot assume that you're going to be able to touch everybody with your blade. You're going to be in a fight, you're going to be grappling, you're going to be kicking, biting, stabbing and slashing as hard as you can. One of the best way to train that is with simulations. We actually be put with gear on, and we put in scenario where obviously the intensity is gonna gradually get harder and harder. But you want to start with actually moving around people, pushing people, being pushed, applying those fundamental skills, and see what reaction the bad guy has, so that you can then build that confidence that you're gonna need to face multiple assailants.
Is there a difference between how people are trained for knife defense and how those situations actually happen in the real world?
I would love to take that question because that is actually a pet peeve of mine. And I come from martial arts. I studied martial arts as I was a kid, and when I was living in San Francisco, that's where I got first introduced to the knife. It's with the Dialba system, and we did a lot of knife work, and I became really good at it. Became really good at all the fancy stuff, right? But I then realized that the fancy stuff doesn't apply in real life. So, when you train increasingly complicated sequences of move for increasingly implausible scenario, you're gonna really become good at the wrong thing. Right? You're going to become good at fancy move that you have memorized, not at reacting to the attack, seeing what opening is there and taking it. Right? So I've seen that over and over in my classes when there is, people with a lot of knife experience, whether it is Filipino style, Korean, what have you, and they miserably fail once they're put in the scenario, because you know what, the bad guy is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, right? So the way that most people train knife stuff is like any other sort of martial arts. It's like, you know, martial artists really look for the complex, because once they train and they master complex skills, that's what gives them satisfaction, right? Because it does take a lot of coordination, a lot of, you know, speed, agility, and all of that. But the disconnect is when they think that those very fancy sequences are gonna translate into the streets and keep them safe. So my litmus test is whenever I see a YouTube video of really fancy knife work, right? Always look at the partner, right? Are they actually giving resistance, or are they just, you know, anatomically correct dummies that stay still and let the other guy do whatever he needs to do, right? Is the guy with a knife actually making contact or missing all the time, like pulling their strike, pulling their slashing, and so on? Are they even integrating empty hand skills, or is it just like a fancy dance with a knife? So whenever I see those videos, I ask myself, would I rather face this guy, or would I rather face a monkey with a knife, right? So most of the time, I'd rather face this guy because it's a lot easier to control than a monkey with a knife, right? So you want to be the monkey with a knife and leave all the fancy stuff for people that enjoy training for the sake of training.
And what are your thoughts on the self-defense pens?
I like them. You know, I think they're, you know, good tools. I got mine confiscated not too long ago by TSA at the airport. I was a little disappointed because I was able to carry it on plane, you know, up until then. So my advice to you, don't buy the super crazy, you know, badass tactical pens, because those are the first one to be recognized as weapon and possibly be taken away. Secondarily, if you travel with those, put them together with other pens and, you know, markers and Sharpies and things of that nature, so that they don't, you know, pique the interest of, you know, security personnel and so on. Because it's one of those tools that you can seamlessly apply what you learn in knife training to the pen, and it can still do quite a bit of damage. Again, the pen is not going to be the same amount of damage as the knife, and your hand-to-hand skills are going to be very important for that application as well.
So we got a live question from the comments below for Ale. What are your favorite targets with the blade?
Well, that is another point of that. You know, I've been thinking long and hard about it, done a lot of research about it. Because again, coming from martial arts, you know, there is this thing about defanging the snake. You know, you slice the wrist and you cut all the tendons. You cut, you know, the leg, and the guy goes down. And unfortunately, if you talk to emergency nurses, emergency surgeons, you see that they have people that come in with mangled forearms, and they're still able to open and close their hand. You know, they come in with broken legs, and we're still able to kind of walk on it almost. So the idea that you can do that much damage with a knife, especially a knife with a blade that, you know, is considered legal in most states, so around 3 to 4 inches, it's kind of delusional, right? So I kind of espouse the philosophy, you know, instead of defanging the snake, just decapitate it. Like, you know, go for the targets that are gonna elicit the stronger response from the bad guy. So our tactical anatomy part, you know, we talk about mechanical target, which is tendons and muscle. We talk about vascular target, which is, you know, veins and arteries. And then we talk about my favorite, which is, you know, the face and neck area and the groin. And these two targets are there because, you know, you know, if you know physiologically and psychologically, we are hardwired to disengage from noxious stimuli that are introduced to our face, right? So I don't necessarily want to hit the head because it's the kill shot, air quotes again, but it's because it's gonna elicit the stronger response from the bad guy, and it's gonna retask his priority. If the bad guy is choking me and trying to hit me with a bottle, and I stab him in the face, he's gonna rethink his priorities right away and try to disengage, which in turn is gonna open more targets for me, right? When I strike repeatedly in one area, eventually the bad guy has the same survival reaction as we do. So it may intercept, it may flinch and intercept my strikes, which when the hands are up here, now the groin is open to be accessed. So I really teach like mostly strike the head and neck and strike the groin. And when one of these areas get closed, the other is going to be open. And again, if you introduce a knife to the groin, most people are trying to disengage from there, you know, pretty quickly.
For those of you that are just joining us, this is PDN Live. Our topic is self-defense with the blade, and our special guest tonight is Alessandro Padovani of Safer, Faster Defense, and we also have Rob Pincus with us, Executive Director of Personal Defense Network. The Personal Defense Network has a free newsletter. If you're interested, click the link below, sign up, get some great content out of this. You can find us on Facebook, Personal Defense Network, Twitter, P_D_N, and Instagram at PD Network. Rob, inquiring minds want to know, what is your everyday carry blade and what are your opinions on blades?
I think blades are invaluable. I can't say that I carry a blade every day. Of course, I can't say that I carry a gun every day. Most commonly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some kind of a folder. This is one that I've been carrying lately. It's a Benchmade, just kind of a pretty straightforward, really nice utility knife. It's got the access lock on it, and it's got a thumb stud for assisted opening. As far as a utility knife goes, you know, this is exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for. Historically, I've carried everything. I think the knife I probably carried the most through the 90s and in the early 2000s was an Emerson CQC7, you know, with the original Wave assisted opener, which I really like those types of assisted openers for a blade that's going to be carried primarily for defense. I've also liked a lot of the fixed blades, a lot of the short, compact fixed blades, and I've taken to carrying not only the folders but the short fixed blades when I can legally carry them centerline. So just like I carry my gun, you know, what's called appendix carry, you know, centerline in front of the body in between the hips, I also like to carry my knife that way. So something like the Street Beat 2 from Spyderco is one that I carried for a long time. One that I've been carrying lately are various versions of this Sock P from Benchmade. This is a dagger that's purpose-built for extreme close quarters defense. Someone gets their hand on your gun, someone gets their hand on you, and you need to fight them off. And whether you're doing that, you know, with this ring going through your index finger, you're getting your thumb through the ring, or if you end up in a situation where you draw the knife and have your pinky finger through that ring, and you're more stabbing or slashing with it, or if you're in close quarters coming upward in that groin area like Alessandro is talking about, this has kind of become one of my favorite fixed blades over the last year or two. And this is nice because not only can I carry it centerline, but it's very thin, easy to carry, but it also goes well mounting to hard points on bags. A lot of people wear them on their vests on different pieces of kit. Law enforcement officers are carrying these inside the waistband now, inside their duty belt, just like Alessandro was talking about, as a defensive tool if they have to pin their gun down if someone's trying to get their gun. So I've sort of moved to that style of knife, and again, as Alessandro said, carrying a fixed blade whenever possible.
Great. And then let's see here, Alessandro, what's your everyday carry?
All right. Well, as a matter of fact, for a long time I carried the same Benchmade, the McHenry Williams. You know, it's a really sweet knife. But I was conflicted for a long time about the wave feature on knives, right? And then when I tried it, I cannot go back. You know, so especially from a personal defense perspective, the wave feature in a knife allows you to open the knife with the least amount of complex motor skills and in the quickest way. It's even faster than an automatic knife, especially an automatic knife with a safety, right? So personally, I've been carrying the Benchmade Griptilian quite a bit, and I cut a wave feature in it with a Dremel, right? I've been carrying the Spyderco Endura with the wave feature, and those are kind of like nice entry-level knives, if you will. You know, you can find them on the internet for like $80, and the other advantage is that they have dedicated trainers, so that, you know, if you get your knife, you want to also get a trainer that closely resembles your knife so that you can practice accurately with it. Now, lately, this past year, I've been carrying the Southern Grind, you know, Bad Monkey. Southern Grind is a company out of Georgia. Really good knife, really good quality knife. They're a little bit more expensive, but the quality that goes into it is pretty impressive. So I vary. Unfortunately, I cannot carry fixed blades. I have a bunch, but I cannot carry them, so I leave them at home, and I look at them longingly often. But main thing is you really need to find the blade that works well for you. Everybody gets, excited about the sexy blade that looks really tactical, But the most important part in a knife is your handle, how it conforms to your hand, how secure it is in your hand. One of the reasons why I'm moving away from the Spyderco is because it has a pretty skinny grip for me. And I've noticed a lot of the students, when they come to class, I provide trainers, that, the knife, when they hit, especially if they hit hard, as they're, in the 4-on-4 scenario, it's kind of easier to let the hand slide forward, which is not really something you want in a knife. The other thing is, going back a little bit, just for a second, about the curved blades, the serrated and the karambit styles. It really depends. Some of these karambits, like the curved blades, have a geometry that I remember actually practicing on a dummy with clothes on. And the curved blade has a tendency to get caught, especially if somebody's wearing baggy clothes, to get caught in the clothes and get wrapped up, where a straight edge blade is not gonna have the same problem. So there's really no substitution for trying handling the knife and find what works best for you. But I strongly advise something with a weight feature if possible.
Rob, do you have any other thoughts or questions on blades?
Well, I actually, most gun people are used to the concept of the box of holsters that we all go through trying to find the right holster, and obviously lots of different types of guns, maybe carrying different types of guns. We end up with this proverbial box of holsters that are just free for the taking for anybody who wants them, because we're done with them. We spent the money on them. Maybe we used them, maybe we never used them. They weren't right for us. They aren't right for us. So we got that leftover box. I have a bag of knives. I've got I mean, it's pretty hefty. I've been into blades since I was old enough to order them from Asian World of Martial Arts, claiming to be 18 and having them sent from like the back of Black Belt magazine or whatever. So I've got some blades here that I wanted to get Alessandro's opinion about. But before we go into some of the big variety, the kitchen knife, Alessandro. When we talk about home defense, one of the things we talk about is improvised tools that are around the house. Everybody's got a kitchen full of blades, some better than others, but thoughts on if you're going to have one kitchen knife in a holder in the kitchen that it's always in the same place, you're going to grab it and use it. What's your thought on size, shape, something like that, or silly idea or what?
No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, we need to understand that when you're in your house, your kitchen knife are probably the one that you've been using the most, so you're most familiar with, and frankly, you're probably going to keep them sharp because you're using them, pretty much every day. So they're a really good tool that you can use to defend yourself. As a matter of fact, when I teach my women personal protection classes, at the end of the day or the 2-day class, I always do a segment on knives because they're going to be the chance that it can be assaulted in their own house is it's statistically pretty significant. So if you don't have a cast iron skillet, the next best thing is go to the knife. And we teach, I really do a 5 minutes instruction on how to hold the knife and where to hit the bad guy with the knife. And once they go through the scenario with the ability to access the kitchen knife that may be on the table, that may be in the drawer and so on, they realize how much easier it is to defend yourself when you have a tool, right? And most modern kitchen knives are strong enough, to do damage on a bad guy. The big ones are pretty thin, but frankly, even if you break a knife, you can still use it as a tool, right? The bigger the blade, the more meat on it. You break it, it's not going to break clean, it's going to be jagged, so you can still use it to give you a better chance to be able to defend yourself.
Good. All right. So, so this is a knife, really nice little fixed blade. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a bunch of knives I've got sitting here. Maybe give a ranking of like 1 to 5. 1 being pretty useless, but like you said, even a broken knife better than no knife. 5 being awesome choice, and maybe a little like 30 seconds on why. We'll go through some of them here. This is a knife that I use hunting, just kind of quick field dressing, whatever, little handy knife. Big handle, which I like. You mentioned that earlier. Kind of a small, thin blade, but pointy. Thoughts? go. This one's made by Ross Kaiser.
All right. I think you probably have to hide that knife next time I come to see you, man, because that's a really nice knife, and I think it's very functional. Like you say, it's a round handle. It's a big handle that fits your hand. It's got the finger guard that actually will help you prevent sliding forward, and the fact that it's kind of a thin blade. It goes down into a flat grind, but it's a sharp point, and it's pretty solid. The spine is pretty thick. I think that's probably like almost quarter-inch thick. So I think that would be an awesome tool, both for hunting and for defending yourself.
All right, cool. So on a scale of 1 to 5, that one gets?
That would get a definite 5.
All right. This is a multiple-purpose with a little lanyard clasp, folding kind of Cub Scout non-locking pocket knife with a screwdriver.
Yeah, that is that's a classic one. That's a classic one. You can probably use it better just to put in your fist and punch harder with it than to deploy the blade that is not locking.
All right.
Yes,
so score?
Score is 1.
Yeah. All right. Dagger. World War II style Applegate Fairbairn dagger.
Yeah, that is a 5, as in efficiency and utility. It's gonna be probably a little bit harder to defend in court.
The lipstick knife. Clandestine, sometimes works lipstick knife.
I have never seen that before.
Well, it's because you never asked to borrow my lipstick, Shannon.
Can we go with negatives? Can I go at -1?
You can do that. You're European. You can do whatever you want.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's one of those gadgets that may seem interesting in concept, but frankly, it takes you like 15 seconds to deploy it, and by then everything that needed to happen has already happened.
True story. All right, this is a new one from Spyderco. You and I have talked about this a little bit online. It's one of those knife that I got from a buddy of mine who helped design this to check it out. But it's just the idea of the fixed either neck knife, or just anywhere you're going to carry it on the lanyard, pull it out, a small, again, for this size, I think it's got a good size handle with a small blade neck knife kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that knife, actually. I want to try it, like, when I come up for the instructor development, I want to test it because it looks like that's the extremely efficient for what is intended to. It's a small knife. You can carry it on you all the time. I remember reading about it, and the guy, basically developed it so that, servicemen and women could have something to defend themselves, even when they're in the shower and so on, because there are other sexual assaults and all of that stuff, right? So I think that is a really well thought out knife. And again, people, sometimes get focused on the wrong things. Like size of a knife, especially of the blade, is not really that important because you know that your body is flexible. Like, so if I have a 2-inch blade and I press it here, I'm still gonna go in 3.5 inches, right? And all the main things that we want to access with a blade are no more than 2.5 inches deep in our body, right? So I think that's a 5, especially for ease of carry, right? And the only thing is I would stay away from neck carry because neck carry is all good as long as you're not in a fight. Because when you're fighting, then it's going to be pretty hard to access it. Like, it's not in a fixed place, like, say, center line on your belt or inside the waistband, where wherever you're at, you know where you need to go to get your knife out. It's a little bit like off-body carry, right? That there is so much variation that it doesn't make it the best choice.
All right. Pistol bayonet.
I didn't know there was a comedy show, but I think that what's the word? What's the political correct word? Let's say it's underdevelopment, like mentally underdeveloped as a concept. So I will give it like the -1 as well.
Shiny blade with a unicorn on it.
Well, the unicorn itself, probably warrants a 4. It depends on how the construction is, because that's kind of like a exhibition piece. So sometimes those knives, are big and they're comfortable in your hand, but the quality of the steel, the quality of how they're put together leaves a lot to be desired. So I would say 2.5, just because it's better than nothing.
Yeah, better than negative, better than the lipstick knife.
Yes.
Butterfly knife.
Oh, that is really good if you want to get punched in the face while you're deploying your knife.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can put the variables.
What is your I haven't gotten your opinion on the SOC P as a defensive tool.
Yeah, I actually have one and have the trainer, and I think that it's a really good tool for a very specific context, right? It was developed to be used also in conjunction with your handgun. So get to your knife to fight to your handgun, and then you don't have to drop the knife. You can keep it and get a two-handed grip with your handgun. So for that context, I think is well thought out, and it can be pretty effective. Now, the ergonomics of it are a little bit variable. I know a lot of people that like it and a lot of people that don't feel it secure because the handle is so skinny so that you can actually grip it together with your gun. So I think it's valuable for a specific context, and if it fits your hand comfortably and securely, then it's a very good tool. I like the fact you can hide it pretty much anywhere and nobody sees it. It's very concealable. And frankly, it's not a great slasher, but it's an extremely good stabber, which is what is going to get the most bang for your buck. So a lot of people also say, well, the finger in the ring, is going to get broken, it's going to get this, it's going to get that. That, frankly, goes down to training, and the same people that are going to criticize that, they may have one or two karambits, right? So I don't see what the difference is between having the finger in your karambit hole or having the finger into that. So, try it out if you're interested. If it fits your hand, I think it's a very valid last-ditch tool.
Cool. And I actually have a video coming out on Personal Defense Network showing that integration transition from stabbing somebody to get to the gun. So that video will be available at personaldefensenetwork.com sometime next month or two. That's it. We'll go over the rest of them when you're here in town. Probably to look at some of these, we're going to need some beverages for you to eat.
Hold up that bag again. Hold up your bag of knives.
There's a lot. There's a lot left to go through here. I've got more here. I've got this. I've got the Mirage. I've got the old Mirage ceramic knife with no metal in it. I don't even know why I have. Well, I know why I have these things, but anyway, back to the real questions.
So we have time for one more question that came in. Ale, how do you defend yourself from a knife attack?
Well, that's another thing that we look into it in our classes. So basically, like we said, most of the time, it's a bad guy that's going to access a knife because he wants to hurt you or because he wants to intimidate you, right? So you need to learn to defend from a knife before you can deploy your own, whether it is a knife or a gun even. So the concept is the concept of the 3C, clear, control, counter. So basically, you want to clear the immediate line of attack. And realize that when that happens, most of the time, chances are you're going to be flinching, trying to, get something in between your face, your torso, and the blade, right? So you want to learn to convert that into controlling the armed limb before you can mount your counter. And your counter can be empty hand, to start, or if you're trained and it's easy to access your weapon, you can access your weapon because the level of threat, authorizes you to. So main thing is, again, empty hands are very important. You want to clear the line of attack. You want to control that limb for long enough to mount your own counters, right? And again, sometimes the main thing is get out of the way, and then the control and counter can be mixed up, right? Because you may find yourself in a situation where you can actually strike before you can grab the arm, or vice versa. But again, there's I don't teach any knife disarms, I don't teach any fancy stuff because, again, that stuff doesn't work. And we experimented, and it's really hard, if not impossible, to disarm somebody that is not half unconscious. So get them to the half unconscious stage, and then try the fancy stuff if you have to. But I stay away from there. Another thing that I want to add, if we have time, is the fact that we also need to be honest with ourselves and understand that it's not really easy to put a knife to somebody's face or groin, right? So I've had people that train in self-defense, they're fellow instructor in firearms and so on, and when they come to my knife class, you know, shooting somebody is a lot easier than stabbing somebody in the face. So when we train, we always have, you know, face and neck protection and groin protection, because we put tool on target from the very beginning, right? Because that's what we want to train. But then, even if we train all day like that, when we put people in scenarios, we see that there is a very strong resistance to actually stab somebody on that clear plexiglass, you know, in front of their face. So we need to give each other, we need to give ourselves consent to hurt somebody in that way. We need to think about it before we need to do it for real. Otherwise, there's going to be a disconnect between, you know, our ability and our ability to apply our skills.
So we've reached the top of the hour. Do you have any final thoughts that we didn't cover? For those of you that are live and have questions, Rob and Ali will stay on after for a little bit to answer questions. But Ali, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to give our viewers?
Well, you know, by all means, you know, if you have any other question, or if something piques your interest and you want a better explanation, you can also send me an email, right? We can talk about it more like that. Come to class if you get a chance, and frankly, just be very critical in the program that you choose to train in, right? The way that I teach knife skills is pretty much the way that combat focus shooting teaches firearm skills, right? It's not going to make you the prettier martial artist. It's not going to make you the most accurate, you know, shooter, you know, to make a parallel, but you're going to be the most efficient at defending yourself with a knife. So mindset, simple intuitive skills, and then a lot of force-on-force scenario to test and develop those skills.
And for those watching live, we have a going on right now. You have until midnight to guess how many states the 2015 PDN tour truck saw this year. Rob, can you give any sort of hints as to where the truck has been?
Well, I think we hit all but 3 states that touch the Atlantic. We hit 2 states that hit the Pacific, and a whole bunch of states in between. And that's probably about as much as we can do. But if people go back and look at the schedules that were posted, if they look at, you know, the timeline, if they look at the social media that was put out, both at PD Network and at my Instagram, Pincus Rob, they can get a really good idea of where classes were held, and then just kind of connect the dots, and they're probably going to get really close. You know, it's a pretty impressive number. I think I don't know if it's the highest number, but if it's not the highest number, it's real close to the most states touched. I know this year's 2015 Personal Defense Network Training Tour, we had more instructors. Alessandro was one of them teaching for us than ever before. We had more classes run than ever before in more different places than ever before, and more students than ever before. So you know, another record-setting year, and we're looking forward to 2016. And we thought it'd be fun to sort of announce the breadth of even just my presence on the tour, let alone all the other guys, through this contest. So everybody head over to the Personal Defense Network Facebook page and enter your guests before midnight Central Time on July 30th, which is tonight.
Awesome. And for those of you that have any topics for next time's PDN Live, please send us suggestions, social@personaldefensenetwork.com. If you like what you're hearing, sign up for our free newsletter, and the link is in the comments below. And stick around for a little bit longer, and Ali and Rob will be on to answer any questions. Ali, thank you so much for being on tonight. And Rob, thank you for being here with your bag of knives.
My pleasure.
Thanks, guys.